one other thing, I actually got my friend Victor on Clubhouse. Download the app if you have an iPhone. And Thursdays at 3:00, we're doing the wrap-up show to ask all the questions to people like himself. Because you're going to hear things today and you're going to be like, I want a little more information. And maybe we can get him tomorrow while he's driving to jump in. So get your Clubhouse app off iTunes, off the Apple Store, join Clubhouse, and find the True House Stories wrap-up show, 3:00 New York City time on Thursdays. Now, back to Victor. Arthur Baker takes him to Woodstock, New York. And what does he learn how to do? Becomes a professional a mover with boxes. He's good at this now. So,
well, yeah, and wow, you just opened up a whole
plethora of stuff. Yeah. New York, here we go.
You know, when you think about what we're talking about, how many things do we learn in this business unwillingly? Unwillingly. In other words, it's just part of the path. Yeah. So when I think about it, Len, after all that I've had to learn, not by choice, just had to learn, I could probably be a travel agent. I could be a mover. I could be a janitor. I could be a lawyer. And wow, I could keep thinking. But these are all skills that you learn along the way. That goes an accountant. These are all skills that come with it. But not to get off the subject.
No, you're right. Because if you didn't learn them, how the hell would you survive?
That's right. That's exactly right.
And you couldn't tell anybody who hired you didn't know how to do it. Because why? You're afraid of losing that job, maybe.
Oh, wow.
Explain that to how the competition was so stiff.
Mike, let me tell you something. There wasn't a line of 10 people at the door waiting to come in. There were lines of hundreds of people just waiting for you to slip up. That's it. Slip up once.
God, that he would do something wrong and be fired.
Definitely. Slip up once, you're gone, next guy's in. And that, it was like exactly what you just said. So that really gets you to bring up your game. Not 100%, 1,000%. I basically, well, I'll get to that, but I ended up just pretty much moving in, but I'll get to that. So, and let me just start with this, the job that I started there was as an intern. Now, what is an intern? That means doing what I'm going to explain to you without getting paid, just to be in the environment, okay? And I'm just going to start this with a saying from Edison. I don't know if you know who Thomas Edison is. If you don't, the turntable is one thing that he invented. He was an inventor, okay? And listen to, this is one thing he said. And I wrote it down because, it's really...
Share it with us, Victor.
It's meaningful, right? He said, opportunity is missed by most people because it is dressed in overalls and looks like work. And that's the truth, man. That's the truth. And that really, that puts it into a sentence of my mind frame. And especially at that young age, because what did I do the second and third day? I told you what I did the first day. Second and third day, made coffee, ran errands, swept, cleaned, mopped. You name it, I did it. Answered phones, just the basic entry-level things that an intern could do is what I did. And I eventually, with time, I sort of worked up to a head intern where they were counting on me to train new interns coming in. And all the time I'm doing it, I'm letting Arthur know what I really want to do. It's editing, and people that were editing for him at the time, again, was Gail Sky King, Latin Rascals. They were slightly before I mentioned that phone call, but so Junior Vasquez, and Junior came there through Shep as far as I can remember. Juan Cato and Aldo Marin, Benji Candelario. There were others too, but I'm just giving you an idea. Danny Crivet, of course. Yeah, these are all people that were editing.
David Morales was through there as well, if I remember.
He was. David Morales, actually.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, he was. He was. Actually, it was Dave DePino who brought David Morales to Shakedown, if I remember correctly. Mm-hmm. And, well, let's jump ahead a little bit. But what I was going to...
Go ahead. Sorry.
What I was going to say is one intern that I trained that came in was a friend named, well, he became a close friend named David Rosner. Wow. And David, rest in peace.
Hang on.
Yep.
Hang on, because I know the story of Roz. We were all friends with Roz. Yep. David Roz comes and Arthur hires him, whoever hires him, he comes to you, Victor. What's the first thing you tell Roz? Because I always laugh.
Yeah, always keep. I said, Roz, if you want to keep this job, and again, this is a working for free, cleaning up job. If you want to keep this job, Roz, always keep busy. If you don't have anything to do, find something to do. Right. So one day, that sunk in for sure. Because one day I walk in the edit room, and I saw him go in there to do work. I saw him go in there, but he wasn't in there. I'm looking around. I look at the window sill. Now, remember, I don't know if it's the third floor. It's high, though. I look out the window. He's actually outside the window, not inside, cleaning the outside of the window on the ledge, outside. And I said, Roz, well, that's really keeping busy. I mean, I didn't expect you to go that far, Roz. But he said, yeah, man, you told me to keep busy if I have nothing to do. So I figured I'd watch the outside of the window, So and that got him far, man. Jumping ahead, after Shakedown closed, he became the manager of Quad.
That's right.
And, he has so many stories from Quad, and I wish he was here to tell them.
He was the main guy at Quad. He did all the bookings at Quad.
He did.
Quad Recording was a powerhouse in Manhattan as far as major superstars. John Morales, Eminem guys mixed out of Quad. You had so many, Frankie Knuckles, David Morales, everybody was using Quad, plus all the major superstars from all the record labels. So he was handling everybody.
He was. And there's actually a video of him online where he talks about when Tupac was shot in the lobby and how he helped him. And, I think that went into a documentary about Tupac where Roz talks about it. But he would oversee all the sessions there, and he was a great guy. But I'm just giving an example of where hard work got him. That's all, because he worked very hard, and he eventually became manager. But anyway, getting back to how I worked my way up there is, I just ended up being there all the time. I was always available all the time to do whatever they needed me to do. So, and I was putting the bug in their ear that. And when I say there, because there was a studio manager, Elise Klein, who was the sister of Tina Klein, Tina B, was the manager. And basically, one day they said, we have some clients that need an editor. We don't have an editor available. And their names were the Garvin brothers, and they were clients of the studio. So I did an edit session for them for their record. That was probably the first record I edited professionally. And Arthur took notice that I did that. And there was a day that he couldn't find an editor. He said, Gail isn't available, or Benji, or other people he was working with were not available. And I had been watching them all that time too. And Junior, I thank Junior, Danny, even Robert Clavillis was there frequently working on his projects. And they would all show me as an intern what editing was and walk me through it. And especially Junior really showed me how to save pieces of tape on the wall and write behind them. And it's really like a tailor. If you could imagine a tailor shop that's sewing pieces of material together, if you get in, that kind of gives you an idea what the edit room looks like with tape all over. But anyway, Arthur said, I can't get an editor today. You want to give it a shot? I said, I'd love to. And that project was Will Downing, SOS. And that was the first one I edited for Arthur. And he had been working with Will on Wally Jump Jr. and other projects like, a lot of anonymous things or pseudonyms that Will was working under at the time. But anyway, I did that for Arthur. And after Arthur liked it. He liked what I did. So then he dumped another one on me. Not dumped, but
No, he dumped it.
He just gave me one.
Here's how that goes, everybody. Now you can't go home.
Right.
What I said?
Right. You nailed it.
Out tonight. You ain't going out. We're going out. Right? Tell him, Victor. You're going out that night, right? What happened?
Exactly. So from that point on, basically, you're not going home. So I just basically
can't go home. Hey, well,
no. I pretty much. It was 24/7, 365 days a year work. There was no stopping. He'd mix a tune. And what did mixing consist of then? Okay, like you said, a room like yours was the A room with an SSL.
Right.
I could send you pictures of that. It was similar to your board.
Yeah, he had a 4000 there, E-board, right? If I remember.
I honestly don't remember the model number, but it's an SSL.
Yeah, he had 4048 G in there or something like that. E with a G, whatever it was. I think it was, yeah.
Very similar to yours, man. But he would mix various versions, right? He'd do various versions and give me a good stack of tapes, And he'd ask me to come up with one version from all the versions, right? With editing. So I'd have to take pieces from each version and, I'd edit them all together. And in the end result would be one version. So if it was a club mix, that's what it was. If he wanted me to do another version, a dub mix, then that's what it was. If he wanted an instrumental, then that's what it was. But he wouldn't give me these mixes completed. He would give me a number of takes. Today it's referred to as bounces. In other words, he'd give me a number of takes and ask me to come up with one version out of all those takes. So the first thing I would do was listen down to all the takes, which would take sometimes some hours. And I have just a pen and notepad and take notes on what each take was. This way, so now when I'm starting, I sort of have a blank canvas. I have the paint, and now I go to work. You follow? If you're comparing it to art.
Mm-hmm.
So
what machine did he have you on? A 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch?
So he had a 1/2 inch Otari. And it was 30 IPS.
Okay.
And I could also go 15 IPS, and also it could go 7.5 as well. But we'd always record at 30 IPS because that's the best speed to record at. You're going to get the best quality that way. So yeah, I mean, he came in with the Talking Heads. Then he got Quincy Jones project, which was Quincy featuring Ray Charles and Shaka Khan. He had Blondie, Deborah Harry. She'd be up at the studio fairly often, and there was project after project that came through. He even worked on the Quincy movie at the time. So there was so many Quincy tapes in there. That was around the time of Secret Garden. That's moving ahead a little bit. But it was project after project, then. Mm-hmm. And basically, there was a spare room there that they just store stuff in, and there was Sonics on the floor. I would just sleep on Sonics when I could, because he would leave and say, okay, yeah, get this done as quick as you can. I'll be back tomorrow. And he'd come back and hear it and then give me tips if he wanted. And yeah, so you get an idea. And the size of the room was very small. Now, while all this is happening, all the clients at Shakedown are seeing me work. You mentioned David coming through, David Morales. I mentioned Dave DePino, and I said Junie was there. A lot of major labels there too coming through.
Right.
And so Lenny D, who was working down the street at Nile Rodgers' studio, it was called Skyline. Skyline Studio was down the street.
Right, Skyline. Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yep. And so Lenny left Skyline and he came to work at Shakedown as well. And so Arthur knew both of us were from Brooklyn. And so he said, why don't you guys do some stuff as the Brooklyn Funk Essentials? He sort of gave us that name. And we started to do productions and remix under that name. And Lenny then took me over to 4th Floor and New Groove, which was around the block. That was on 30. Let me think now. Right. Shakedown was on 37th Street between 7th and 8th, I believe.
Yes.
And New Groove and 4th Floor was, I believe, on 38th Street between 5th and 6th. I don't know if I got this right, but I'm going from memory.
Yeah, because it was on that side street, I remember. It was in that one building. Yeah, it was in the Parliament District area. Yeah, I remember.
Right, okay.
Office. Yeah, I remember Judy was working out there. Judy Russell, may she rest in peace, another one.
In which building?
In that building.
Oh, New Groove. Groove. Yeah, you're right.
Working for him at that time. She just got the job.
She was. What a great person she was.
There's so many people that we know are gone. It's crazy.
I know. It's so sad.
Gone from the business. Gone from the earth.
It's so sad. God rest her soul. It really is. But she was amazing. She would A&R all the stuff, and it was Frank Mendez who owned New Groove at the time, and Judy was at A&R. But Tommy was up at 4th Floor, and actually the studio where a lot of the New Groove and 4th Floor stuff was being done, and Tommy was the head engineer, so he'd be engineering most of those projects. Even for the Burrell brothers, they were doing a lot of stuff for New Groove. And anyway, I started to do stuff for New Groove, and I eventually ended up moving on from Shakedown. It shut down, and Arthur moved on. He moved the studio out to Jersey. No, actually, he moved the studio a few blocks away to another place temporarily, and then moved to Jersey City. And I had already started working with other labels. There was one named Vendetta. I don't know if you remember Larry Asgar.
Sure.
Yeah, that was one label. Anyway, started working for many labels, and I don't want to lose my train of thought.
So you go into New Groove, you get the Brooklyn Funk Essentials, and that's where the production, I think, really begins, right?
Right. Yeah. Thank you for
explain the production process for you, because you're an editor now. You're a professional editor. I haven't paid yet. I haven't heard you say you got paid, but you're an editor. Professional.
He did. He started paying me when I started editing. So yeah. Thank you for keeping me focused, Len, because there's just so much that runs through your mind when we talk about it.
No, I'll keep you on it. Don't worry. We'll keep you on the Victor train.
Yeah, no, thank you, brother. So eventually with editing back at Shakedown, Arthur would start bringing me into the studio, and while he was mixing, he'd start asking me what pieces I'd like, or to suggest pieces that I'd like to work with. Like, for example, what do I mean by that? Well, Arthur, could you give me a piece with just the drums and bass? Give me a good minute of just drums and bass. Okay, Vic, what other pieces do you want? Well, just give me a piece with the piano and vocal, and just those kind of combinations. I tell him combinations of different instruments together. So he'd give me those pieces so I could work with them and edit them together. So I'm asking him for pieces, and at the same time, I'm watching what he's doing. So it's, on the job training. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
On the job training. And then Lenny's bringing his skills to it too. All he learned from Nile Rodgers down at Skyline. And, we ended up producing, we ended up doing an album worth of experimental material, Lenny and I, that eventually came out 10 years later. I don't know how and why it ended up where it ended up. That's still a mystery to me, but they were experimental productions, and we tried to do the best we could at the time, but you could hear it in there that they are experimental. It came out as Essential Funk from Brooklyn 10 years or so after we did it, about that. And then we started remixing together, and and that's jumping ahead again to when I started spending a lot of time at New Groove and Fourth Floor, and Shakedown closed down. And basically, we started remixing and producing at Shakedown, and that moved over to New Groove and Fourth Floor. And, some labels in the UK started licensing from us. One early one Lenny and I did was Subliminal Aura and Critical Rhythm. One of those was on Fourth Floor, the other was on New Groove. And, I'm not getting a lot of notice from productions I'm doing at the time. I'm just looked at as, some new kid that's, trying as best he could. And that's exactly what I was doing, just trying the best I could, feeling around.
Now realizing that you were growing, a cult following was growing under you, not realizing it though, because there was no social media yet.
There wasn't.
Doing record to record. If I remember how we spoke about it, you were like, just making the next record. You were just making the next record. You were making the next. You weren't thinking about how great the record was doing. You were just on to the next record. I got to make one.
Definitely. And that what you just said applied to the editing process, and then applied to the production process. So by the time I got into independent production, just on my own, was about 1990, 1991. And I did a tune called "I Want You to Know" by Groove Committee, and that was the track that made the difference for me in my career anyway, Len. Because, I'd been doing it since I explained, 87, 88, 89, 90. And, not getting much notice for what I was doing. I was getting credited, but, it was just looked at as just, I didn't get noticed for it, But I got the credit. But like you said, it was creating sort of a following that I didn't know about, sort of slowly. At least you're getting your name out there. But with "I Want You to Know," Groove Committee, I could see the difference. People really started calling me and saying, get me this record. I love it. And I was getting calls from overseas.
Who was the guy that played that record that broke it for you? There's always one guy that you go, holy shit.
I believe it was Larry, because Judy was very tight with Larry, and he was touring in Japan. And I ended up getting a recording of Larry, of him playing it. And, actually, he ended up, I don't know if it's an edit, but I guess it's through Judy, because I didn't give it to him directly. It's through Judy, I believe.
Oh, yeah, she's very tight with him. Her and
me. Very tight.
Very tight with him.
Very tight. And, there's a version that we have of his too, then. And
a version? I didn't know that.
there is a version. Yes, I'll give it to you. I will give it to you.
Oh, wow.
I'll give it to you.
Look at that on True House Stories, and when Larry Levan did an edit of an editor. And that's something. That's something. But go ahead, Vic.
Yeah, and I don't know all the details about it because again, this is Trudy had that contact. So remember, I'm young and upcoming, but anyway, it's that version that wasn't released on the initial vinyl, right? When the vinyl came out, it came out as a 12-inch, and it was just one of the tunes on that EP. But a lot of people started calling, and Todd was one that got in touch. Todd Terry. Now Todd was from the same area as I am from. He's from the same area in Brooklyn. And he got in touch and said, you got something there. He gave me really good advice. He said, you got something there. A lot of people are feeling it. He said, go in and do it again. He said, do the same thing again. And I did exactly that. I did Dirty Games, and then I did Feel So Right.
Ah, yeah. There we go.
Right?
There we go. Boom.
Those are one after another.
Woo! Talk about bullet after bullet, but that feels so right. Good Lord Almighty. Talk about killing us.
No, thank you, brother. No, I appreciate that.
I've told you since day one when you did it. I remember I said, winner.
Thank you. But we have to remember, you can't, as well as I, you can't predict what's going to hit and what's not. So having feedback and advice, it's just so helpful because as musicians, Len, and producers, as well as I, we can pretty much create anything in any style. But is that gonna reach an audience?
Yeah, we don't know.
No. It's not going to reach an audience. Exactly. So
you must have been a little gun shy too with that whole Lenny D thing and experimental stuff, because you're coming off the back of that, and then house music is just becoming, with the major companies starting to get recognized. So you're kind of trying to, I remember from my own personal experience, you're trying to find where your steps are. Mm-hmm. Who's in your camp? I remember we had that conversation those days, like who's running the Victor flag? Like who's playing those records? And you don't know until it just all of a sudden, like Todd said, it just pops.
You're right.
Then you go, okay, now I know where I'm going. Right.
Whoa, right. You find your direction, the direction exactly. You put it better than I could. What you just said, exactly.
But we had that conversation almost 30 years ago, you and I remember, because you were saying, what are you thinking? And I would say to you, I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out where the hell I can make my next dollar. I remember saying that to you. I love the music. Everybody knows I love the music. Everybody knows I live and love the music. But at the end of the day, and him and I, Victor and I used to laugh about this all the time. We would say, Peter has to play Paul so Mary could keep going. So we got to get money around here. Somebody's got to pay us. He's laughing. He knows exactly what I'm talking about. So, you guys see us as, oh, wow, the records are coming in, and it's a euphoric feeling. Mm-hmm. But then the question is the record going to make the difference to be able to stay in our business and to keep it going? And these are the question marks we were all in those days saying, can we make this really work?
Sure. And you can't predict that. You and I could make the best record in the world. Anybody could make the best record in the world. If it's not got the promotion and the support behind it, where's it going to go, man? And sadly, that fact is proven week after week. If we look on Traxsource, how many great records there are out there, just as an example, that go unnoticed. There's some great music out there. Yeah, there's a lot of nonsense out too, but it's always been that way. You got to go through a lot of the bad stuff to get to the good stuff. So I guess the point I'm trying to make is, for me personally, I can't predict what's going to hit and what's going to and what's not. I just put my best effort into it, and with those records I made, especially with "I Want You to Know" to kick it off, that really I saw the difference because that got people calling me, and shortly after, I went to Japan. That was my first gig abroad. Very shortly after, you know Gomi?
Of course, Kazuhiko Gomi-san.
Yeah, that's right. Gomi.
Bring him up to the table. Gomi, come on in.
Well, it was Satoshi. So Satoshi and I had been working together. So in between Shakedown and New Groove Fourth Floor, or around that time, simultaneously, Judy Weinstein, who had Def Mix, and she and David were partners in the company, and they had that company together, and they came and offered to manage Lenny and I as a production team. Actually, it was 23 West first who managed us, and they were also managing Cole and Clavillis. And first it was 23 West, and that's actually how we got in touch with Martha. So we did right. Let me get to that. So we did a song with Martha Wash titled "Get Your Thing Together," and we wrote that around 1989 and recorded it with Martha. But because Martha, I'm going to guess, because I still don't know to this day the reasons, so I'm going to guess, she had been going through issues with other records she had released at the time. I believe Black Box was one. And I believe
Make You Sweat, PNC Music Factory.
Right. Yeah. I don't know the details of those records, but she didn't want the one that we did with her released. So we couldn't release it. But Next Plateau told us, because it got to the test pressing point. And up until that point, she was okay with it. But something along the way, she didn't like the idea, and total respect to her. We're not going to do
as far as the artistry of the group, or was it under a pseudonym?
It was under a pseudonym.
Probably what it was.
It came out as Urban Rhythm, but not with her voice. Eventually, only test pressings came out with her voice. And she put a stop. She sent a cease and desist. But it was all over Tony's show at the time, and Ralphie D and Lenny D had actually produced it, and then Lenny and I had written it. And I believe all three of us mixed it. It's going back a long time. But anyway, it ended up coming out with Roberta Gilliam. But Next Plateau, Eddie O'Loughlin had Next Plateau at the time. That's the label that released it. And he told us that was the biggest pre-orders they ever had for a record up until that point. So that's really saying a lot, especially for us young, we were young kids. And to have that happen on, one of our first releases together,
wow.
That's really impressive. But again, no one called me directly for that. I was still sort of working my way up. That ended up coming out as Roberta Gilliam. And jump forward to just now, recently, we did a re-record with it with Ann Nesby over the last 10 years. And, we've put that out recently. That's up on TrackSource. But just to show you the life of a song.
Wait a minute, hang on. And your son over here was the first guy that played it for them.
Wow.
I remember I played it for
yes.
He bought it to Lenny. I got a special project for you. Please play the record. So he sent it to me. I knew the record. I remember Ralphie was involved. Ralphie Daggett.
That's right.
And Ralphie D. And who the producer? Because he made a video too. Tell us who the producer on the new project was.
Oh, you mean Raph did the mix? That's right. Raph and Soul.
Ralphie D, but Raph.
Yeah, Raph and Soul. That's right. Yeah, he did. That's right. And he videoed you. Yes.
And he calls me up. He says, "I'm coming to the Birdcage at LeBain. Can you please?" I heard the record, and I played it right away.
He did a great job with it, and I mean, the video you was awesome, Len. So yeah, thank you.
Oh yeah, listen. Good people deserve good promotion. So I was happy to do it.
And it just shows. It shows what the life. It's proof of what the life of a song can be. It's it doesn't necessarily have to be so short-lived. A good song could go on for years and years. I remember watching an interview with Barry White, and he said, "Why do so many people?" So many generation after generation people like his music and songs. And he said, because it's material people can relate to, lyrically they can relate to it. And, musically, love is something everyone can relate to. So, he said something along those lines, and it makes a lot of sense.
Totally.
When it's a good song, man, it could go on for years. So I'm sorry to jump ahead like that, but.
No, it's okay. You're doing a great job.
No, well, good. You help keep me focused, because it's just when we talk about this stuff, there's so many thoughts that run through my mind.
There's 1,000 stories, but you got to give us the good ones for the people. The dirty ones too. Don't forget. So okay. So you're starting to get you're getting your, let's say, your position right.
Mm-hmm.
Because I remember we were around each other. Felix Ortez illegal. You did the deal. What a crazy deal that was. You wound up fighting with him. Oh God, help us, people. Let me just say this. It's this house story is so glamorous. There's also a very dark, shady side. Very dark and shady. And when you want to talk about learning how to become an attorney, learn how to become an accountant, this is where it becomes very interesting, because this is where he's going to tell you a little bit. He'll tell you his way. But to sum it up, you get problems with people when you have big records. And this is where Victor starts to step and say, I'm not a kid no more. Now I want to be seen, because I'm doing what I'm doing. Go ahead, Victor.
Sure. No, good point. Yeah. Well, you start discovering different sides of the business, and how people can wrongly interfere in different sides of the business on your material. For example, if we talk about publishing, and you and I have had that discussion, many times.
How many times?
Yeah.
So every time we're together, I think we have that conversation.
I know. And
every time.
And you've made some interesting decisions over the years in regards to your publishing, and I've made others, and I remember us comparing notes on it, on various occasions. Yeah. Oh, wow. But what Larry Yazgar said to me back when he had Vendetta, I don't know if it was him or his attorneys. It was a friend of his who was an attorney. We're wearing different hats when we're doing tunes. So we could be, there's the artist, there's the songwriter, there's the composer. There's the publisher, there's the producer, there's the remixer. So these are all different hats that we could wear. Those could all be different individuals. It could all be the same person. And, there's business that go along with all of those hats. So I learned slowly, and I'm still learning. We're always learning how the business works with each of those hats. And, how to run that business. I mean, it's music business. Yeah, music is first, absolutely. But there's business that goes with it. So over the years, I've gained a lot of knowledge just through experience of how to deal with the different sides of the business. And people ask, well, can you describe longevity and how you stay in it so long? Well, let's talk about right now. Look, the DJ thing is just dead. There's no gigs. There's no gigs. I mean, that's not our fault. It's beyond our control. It has to do with the pandemic. But thankfully, thank God, I'm into different sides of the business. And a lot of those sides involve royalties. And I've established a very large catalog of music, Len. And luckily, I've retained rights to the majority of it. So it's so sad to see artists and producers and writers, publishers that have lost their rights, because that's the heart and soul. When we create, Len, better than I, it's a piece of us. It's almost, look, it may sound extreme, but I've compared it to a child. It's a piece of us that we're leaving here. And for people to take a piece of that wrongly, it's just plain wrong. It shouldn't happen. It shouldn't happen. It's really upsetting to me to see that happen.
So all the Chicago stories that we heard, and all the business that went on, where these people signed their records over for cars. You know what I'm talking about? You know what I'm talking about.
Sure. I know what you're talking about.
And the records are still being played in infamy. You still hear these records being played on, daytime rotation. And these people who wrote these songs have no way of gaining anything.
It's really upsetting. I encourage any artist, producer, writer, publisher, composer to learn the business side of it, just so you can get your due if and when that comes from that particular tune.
So everybody buy the book, the Standard Business Book. Learn the business, publishing, writing, copyright. Understand what you're getting involved in before you sign anything. Buyer beware, seller beware. More than in this business, seller beware, because oh my God, you'll sign your life away.
Well, exactly. And when we look, I don't want to just bunch all major labels into one category, so I'm not doing that. But I'm saying frequently, from my experience, it'll happen that they're looking for people that are not interested in that side of it. They're just looking to get the notoriety or the fame.
The shine.
That's right. That's right. And
the spotlight for that moment.
No, and I've never, ever, well, I take that back. When I'm young,
let me stop you there.
Yeah.
What was the defining moment that you learned quickly? Which you signed, you learned quickly not to, say to yourself, I'm not going down this road. Did something happen? Did somebody tell you something? What happened?
It was a number of things happening. Through the licensing deals I would do, they all involved contracts. So I'd have to read through those contracts. I'd have to get a lawyer to help me understand it at first. And as I would do each deal, because I would bang out release after release after release after release. I'm still doing release after release, but back then it was for different labels that weren't my own. They were from different. So, through those experiences, I'd come across a good amount that weren't doing the right thing. And, they wouldn't account, or for me, perpetuity is a bad word. I will not sign a contract unless we're talking about some really serious, detailed terms with the word perpetuity. So, there's got to be a term on it, man. That's, first and foremost on licensing deals. When it comes to perpetuity, if someone's giving you a contract that says perpetuity, and I'm talking to artists and producers and, writers, publishers, you got to ask yourself a question. Are you ready to give that up for your life? Are you willing to give up your property for life? Because that's what perpetuity means. You're giving it up, and even beyond your lifetime. Perpetuity. Look it up in the dictionary. So, I came to the point where I realized what certain words mean in contracts, and learned how to amend them and get them to a fair point. So, I wouldn't sign anything.
You're like a consigliere in a sense.
I hear you. I hear you.
You became a lawyer force majeure, basically, because of the situation at hand.
Right. Because you're forced into it. It's not something I set out to do. And I'm sorry to sound so business.
You're making music when you're doing all this legal. Where's your music time? Is that had that slowed down, or because you were worried about contracts?
Well, again, this almost sounds schizophrenic, but when what Larry said about putting on the different hats, that makes a lot of sense. You put that hat on, that's what you're focusing on. So when I got the music hat on and in the studio, that's all I'm focused on. When I got I'm out spinning at the gigs, I got the DJ hat on. Now when I got the business hat on, dealing with the contract, that's where I'm focused on. So that may sound a bit crazy, but when you're forced into that, when it's the kind of thing where, if you think about it, the thought that runs through my mind, if I don't do this, I'm going to get ripped off. Okay. That's the thought that'll run through my mind, because it's exactly what happened.
Hang on, Victor.
Yeah.
Hang on.
Yeah.
You're not 19 years old, and you're not pressing to try to get in the business and try to get something going.
Mm-hmm.
You're also talking from a veteran's level.
Mm-hmm.
How do you tell that young Victor, that was at Shakedown when he was calling and no was a yes, that was going to be what he had to do? You understand?
I do. And I have a son now. I have sons. I have three.
Talk to us. If I was your son, so Pop, what do I do?
Exactly. And I explain it all to him. In fact, he's already got his own label started. And I explained to him how he'll see. So good, very good question. That's a great question. So he'll see. Look, it's trade-offs too. And I've known, Len, you've gone for the other side of the trade-off sometimes over the years. And I understand that. And I see the benefit you got from it. So I totally understand that point of view too. But you realize what you traded off and what you got from that and what you lost from that. We've talked about that too. And likewise, what did I gain from it? What did I lose from it? So going back,
everybody you got to give to get. It goes both sides, no matter
what. Right, definitely. But let's talk about this. Just before I got into the business, I would have never realized this. But sadly, this is often the case where when you're dealing with, especially with a major label, and again, I don't want to bunch them all into one category, but quite often with a major label, the more that you give up, the more promotion you're going to get out of that release. That's not always the case, but it is quite often the case. So in other words, if you're keeping more rights than, let's say, they're used to, or they're used to dealing with, perhaps you won't get as much promotion out of that release. In fact, you've heard of tax write-off projects, right? That majors that
I remember Anthony in the Camp. Anthony with his album got shelved for that exact reason. I remember it like it was yesterday.
Yeah. So the point that I'm getting to is maybe I haven't had as much promotion as others over the years, but I've retained my rights. Now, maybe some other people have got massive promotion, but they've lost their rights. So you have to ask yourself, what matters more? So, maybe there is no right and wrong, and it's just personal preference. But I'm just speaking from my experience, Len.
What happens with some people is that when you're in the major game, playing the major label stuff, and there's a lot of money on the table, you got to see what you got to deal with, and what's going to work for you. I tell everybody it's per your situation. It's not for everybody. What you do, what he does, what I do has to work for what, in other words, the box we're in.
Sure. And I mean,
I tell you, this is the best, everybody. They say, Victor, you shouldn't do that. Victor, what are you doing? It's like, and he's going, but not understanding he's got things in the background that he's got to work through. He's got to answer to. So sometimes you have to deal with the problems you're dealing with, whatever it may be at the time.
Sure. And what comes to the issue now is it's a pandemic, how it shut all the gigs down. If I didn't get my hands into other sides of the business, I'd be bankrupt, Len. It'd be over. But it's thanks to retaining my rights. It's thanks to having a catalog. It's thanks to being able to remix, produce, write. It's thanks to having all those possibilities that keep you, and for myself in any way, in this case, it keeps me moving forward and upward. Thank God. I'm thankful that I thought it out enough to get into different sides of it. And again, that didn't always come by choice. It just came. It came because that's what you. It's the only choice that you could make because
whatever your decision you have to make at the time, what you're dealing with, all that makes the difference.
Yeah.
You know what? You also work like an animal to get that catalog.
Working. So let's go back to 91 when it was New Groove, and then right. So exactly. Let's work up to that. So I started releasing records. I mean, all the labels started calling me in New York. This is before Strictly Rhythm was created. This is before. So I mean, with New Groove, with Fourth Floor, with Criminal Minimal, which were those were authors. Then there was Emotive. There was 8 Ball. Maxi was another, and Strictly came out around that time. And I did do one for Strictly, but I mean, I know Strictly is a very well-known one. So I mentioned that these were before because there were so many independents in New York at the time.
So many is ridiculous.
It really was.
It was out of control. You would go from record label to record label.
Yeah, that's what we would do.
The same record.
That's what we would do then. And then I noticed they have contacts overseas. Now all of this is happening, licensing to different labels, and then started traveling. I started to go to England. I went to Italy. I went to Switzerland. I went to Spain, Portugal, and then started going back to Asia. I went back to Japan and eventually Hong Kong. But it all went hand in hand. As well as I, releasing music, it gets gigs, and getting gigs and playing out inspires you to make more music. So it goes hand in hand. And just playing out to the crowds. I mean, when I first got to England, I thought it was amazing. Just the response and the enthusiasm. Yeah, we have music lovers in the States, absolutely. In England, though, the appreciation and the knowledge and the detail, it's not something I had experienced before going there. I don't know if you could relate to what I'm saying.
Sure, I can. I can remember exactly when we first all went.
Yeah,
it was incredible. They treat us like gods.
And just the facts and detail they knew about the releases, and your background. And that goes back to what you said earlier about how you're sort of forming an audience without even knowing it. And, you discover it when you get there.
Right. You didn't know how it was until you got there.
No, right. And so that eventually led to me. You mentioned Tommy, and Tommy and I were working together. Well, he was already at Fourth Floor back then, but then I remember he and Silvio thinking about the possibility of a new label, and then Suburban started around that time. This was probably about 90, I don't know, 3 or so, about that, 92, 93. And Tommy, we worked together a lot as TMVS, and then eventually, I had worked in Brooklyn at a gym before I started working at Shakedown, when I was still going to school. And I met a guy named Vincent there who was just a member of the gym, and I just didn't think much of him musically, but we had some nice conversation. But he reached out then, several years later, and asked if I wanted to start my own label. Now, I didn't know really what he meant by that, but I met with him and we talked about it. And that's how Baseline started. So with Baseline Records, I had, you remember Vinny?
Vincent Domino, everybody.
You remember him.
I can't believe when you said Vincent, I said it's got to be Vinny Domino.
That's him.
I remember.
You remember. So we started Baseline. It was Barry Coven, Vincent, and I. And Barry Coven eventually worked at Tommy Boy. But, they took care of the business side, and I was just dealing with the music side of things, and, brought friends into it. You even had one release on there. Remember, Len? Yeah. The Hip Swinger. No, that was Big Tracks.
Right. Oh my God, I forgot about that.
That was Big Tracks, yeah. And then you and I actually did one together called Make It Happen, remember?
Yeah, Outcast signed before that. So we signed that to Cool Tempo.
Yeah, you're right. At Cool Tempo. You're right, Len.
But we first did the Cool Tempo deal, and then you asked me later, do you want to put it out? And I said, I can give you that accommodation.
Yeah, I remember that. That was a fun project.
That was a great project.
Yeah, so so that's when I got a real inside feel for, because they'd involved me in the meetings, and so I got a feel for what it was to, be part of having your own label. And they eventually moved on to doing other things, and then, just long story short, I ended up taking over the labels, and I started other labels eventually. West Side.
And became a label whore.
Yeah, right. Just went crazy with labels.
I remember you were out of control. And I was like, what label you have now? What number are we up to? It's like.
So, yeah. So now I have 6 labels now. I have Baseline, Big Tracks, Brooklyn Tracks, Stellar, West Side, and Unknown.
Now, hang on. With all that, you got other people you bring, because Sylvia and Greta used to say this to me. Who's Victor bringing in now?
Right. Oh, really? Did he? He would say that, yeah?
Yes, because Silvio, may he rest in peace, another one that was Tommy Musto's partner in Northcott. He used to say, everybody I'm meeting, Victor Simonelli's bringing them in. Like, you were the hook. It was crazy. Like, you had everybody hooked.
Well, we would, we're just musically, we're such.
They would come to you, Vic, for all the info, and you would help them out. Like, you were like the godfather of the house.
Hey, listen, just through music, it just brings us to meet so many people. So, yes, I mean.
So let's name some of those people that you helped.
Well, right. So, first of all, down at the Winter Music Conference, I remember meeting Brian Tappert and Roy Grant. And we were at a banquet. That's when the Winter Music Conference had the banquet the last night.
That's right.
And this was before many Europeans were coming. It was just on the cusp of that, because before 1990, 1991 or so, Winter Music Conference was pretty much New Yorkers and local Floridians.
That's right.
Right? You remember that? Yep.
I remember because I was there.
Yep. And so I remember the banquet, and Brian was playing, and Brian was spinning, and Roy was playing keys. And, it sounded great. And I went up and I introduced myself and just complimented them. And I asked them if they'd ever done any tunes. And they said they hadn't yet, but they were thinking about it and would like to. And we talked a bit more. I left them my number, my address, and, went back to New York after the conference. A few weeks later, they sent the first demo. And it was awesome. It sounded great. It was called, I believe it was called Freedom. And I was working steadily with Tommy at the time. And, Tommy always said, any tunes you come across, interested in releasing, just bring them over. So I did that. And he ended up releasing Freedom. I think I got that right, that was the first one. We could ask Brian and Roy if that was the first one, but I think that's the first one. And then
it's number 2, but number 1. It's in the beginning. In the beginning, yeah.
And then they did Keep Giving Me Love.
You discovered these guys.
Right. Well, they were already spinning and playing.
You know what I mean? In the sense, here's my number, you got something.
Yeah. Just like Arthur was my kind of foot in the door. I guess I was kind of their foot in the door, if you know what I mean. And so then they sent me Keep Giving Me Love. Then Tommy released that, and then shortly after that is when I started with Baseline. They sent Agitated, and this is the original Jazz and Groove. And then Brian brought his friend into it, Mark Pomeroy. Mark sent his tunes up, which would Agitated came out on Baseline. Then The Sun Will Shine came out on Baseline, and then they brought in their friend John Julius Knight. Actually, he was involved in Agitated as well. And so, I mean, between Mark Pomeroy, Brian Tappert, Roy Grant, and John Julius Knight, those were 4 that I was helping out at the time. And then, Brian and Mark, they went on to start Track Source. This is jumping ahead years later.
Yeah, right. We know that now. They weren't even thinking about that. They were just thinking about
no. This is long before. This is before Sulfuric was started. This is their first production. Then they were doing great productions. Yeah, and then I remember, and they really were. And I remember meeting Sandy Rivera here in Brooklyn, and he was doing some great productions. And I eventually asked him, have you ever remixed something? He said, well, not yet. I'd like to. And I gave him his first tune to remix too. That was when I started Westside. Was Dreaming Ain't Enough?
See, I'm saying that's what Sylvia was right. You were the guy that you're hooking them in. You're bringing them all in one by one.
I'm just trying to think about. You get the wheels turning. And then in regards to artists, I mean, remember Tommy and I, we did the first Michelle Weeks credited record. That was Don't Stop, but it was under a pseudonym, but she was a featured artist. And then I ended up doing the first Sabrina Pope. I did the first Sabrina Johnston. Angel. What about Angel? Right?
I'm waiting for you to get to that. I was waiting.
Boy. Oh, I'm so sad.
This is where Angel Murray is. This is, of course, I knew Angel. I used to see him years prior with the Garage and all that. Angel was when he used to go to Paradise Garage, but he wasn't making records yet. He was just hanging out. So give us the hot and spicy moment.
Well, right. Well, you know what? Look.
All of it. You got to give us somewhere where it comes.
Angel's really like it. But let's look. I have a video here of Angel talking in an interview. Why don't we just let him say it?
All right. So you got to go to the share. Everybody, we're gonna let Angel speak. He did this with Michael Gentile at the Function House in Brooklyn. Nice guys.
What a beautiful person he is.
Vic, do we have it right? I don't see the screen. Try it again.
Hold on.
Angel's going to tell you how he came into Victor's life.
Yeah.
I've said this over and over. One day, Angel came up to me and said to me, he brought this paper and I wish I had it. He says, I'm going to give you this. I looked at it, I said, oh, and he drew me the Paradise Garage logo with marker. Angel's very talented, even as an artist.
Very talented. Very.
He says, I was thinking about you. I wanted to make, and I could hear him. I want you to have this. And I went, oh my God. And I used to have it up in my old DJ room and I moved and I can't find it. I'm so upset over it. But
wow.
Try again sharing that.
Yeah, I'm on my son's computer then. So let me get him to help. Okay?
Bring over a technical support. Emmanuel, come to your phone.
Yeah, Emmanuel. Yeah, he'll help me out. Because I'm on his computer.
So Angel, of course, I'm at Kenny Carpenter's house. I'll give you a quick while he's looking for this. And he brings the first test pressings on Bergen Street. But this is...
Yes, it did. Look.
Okay.
But you got to open the screen.
Okay, I got it. Yeah.
Okay, so here's Angel Moraes.
What are you...
Sorry, okay, got it. Okay, thank you.
So here's Angel play it for us, Emmanuel. Might as well.
Records I had done till that point
check it out.
Were pretty popular in Portugal. So that was that.
So how'd you get into producing?
Producing, I always wanted to produce, but I always was like, damn, I wonder how is that done? Do you listen to the music on headphones or do you listen to it live or whatever? And then I was playing for a house party for a friend of mine. It was her birthday and she was a garage head. And in her mind, the only person that can play those records like Larry was me. Imagine what a compliment. So she asked me, yo, would you play my birthday party? I said, of course. So she rented this 3-story house in Carroll Gardens. And I played the music, and Victor Simonelli was one of the people invited. So he comes to the DJ area, and he introduces himself, and he says, "Yo, you mind if I look through your music? I love the stuff you're playing." I'm like, "No, sure." So he starts pulling out vinyl. So I'm thinking, well, maybe he wants to play, which is good. Give me a break. I'll go have a drink. So he's like, "Yo, this is me, man. I did all this." Like, what? You're Victor Simonelli? It's like this tall, skinny, unassuming Italian dude, made all this soulful music. I'm like, yo, man, I thought you were like a black Italian or something. Victor loves it when I tell the story because it's just something I'm like, nah, man, there's no way that because like Victor looks like if Larry Bird was Italian. He's like this tall, unassuming. It's true. And if he sees this, he'll be the first one dying laughing. So it's like, yo, you did all these records, because he did some badass shit. He was, at that point, Victor had, as a producer, Victor had more popularity than most guys in New York. Even most of the big guys. He was right up there with Morales and Knuckles at the time. Only he was a little more underground. He'd done some amazing work. So he asked me, yo, have you ever been to the studio? I'm like, no, to a studio. I was like, yo, why don't you come down to the, nah, really? So yeah, he invited, and the studio was down here. It was just off of 9th Street and the overpass.
Gowanus.
Yeah, it was in Gowanus. That's it. So I went to the studio and he said, yo, man, bug out, So I'm like, yeah. So I got on the board and it's just like, what? So a week later, I called the owner of the studio. I said, yo, can I book some time? And that was it. And I really didn't know what the fuck I was doing, but I figured, yo, I'll get it. Yeah, I'll get it. I'll get something out of here for sure. Yeah, and that was it.
Wow. That's awesome.
So you flew in for, what did you fly in for this time?
Yeah. To be with you guys, man.
Besides that.
Yeah, that's how we met, man.
Well, the guys at Forward Disco,
video
back here, Chili and Sean, they were gracious enough to invite me to play their party, which I've heard is a big party. From Hector Romero, he plays it all the time with them. He's a big ambassador for that party. So I said,
okay, got it, Len.
So yeah, I remember that, Victor, when you told me you went to go see him at that party and you pulled the records out and he said, "You ain't black."
That's how. Then he describes it better than I ever could. How we met, and what he said is how he got a feel in the studio after calling him, and that's the truth. And we continued to work together. I just was thinking about all the tracks that we had done together just recently because it's passed on, and it's so sad. Angel's like a brother. It's just so shocking. But we that first one was you remember I Know a Place?
I remember it very
well. It was the B-side to I Know a Place. It was called What I Need. That was his first time in the studio. And if you listen to that, you'll hear his touch. You compare that to the other side and you'll hear his touch, And then he came in for Somebody Say Yeah. That was on Church, a DJ and a Sampler on that EP. And then he came in for Ebony Soul, I Can Hardly Wait. And on all of them, one thing about Angel is he's got such a distinctive sound, a unique own sound, his own sound, And what an awesome person, Len. He's really missed.
Don't forget, he could cook like no other.
He sure could.
That bad boy could cook like no other. He killed us with his cooking. But not all the stuff he did building stereo,
Oh,
working
wow.
with Sound Factory. Oh God! And he even made records that Junior Vasquez made into gigantic underground hits. And
Definitely.
that scene and that whole other sound that we weren't doing. You know?
Oh, definitely. Did he ever tell you the story about, because these new speakers he created before he passed on, he was so excited about them. And, he went on to say how it was a dream of his, or he thought up the idea 30 some years ago, or however many years ago it was. Did he ever tell you the story how we would just go into the garage and lay in the speakers and just study them and look at them just physically and in every which way? In every which way. So, boy, he really got a grasp on those from the inside out. So, what a multi-talented person.
He won't be forgotten.
No way. No way.
Well, let's go back to you, because we gave Angel that tribute because it is a lot with you. So here you are again, a starter to him, Brian Tappert. The list goes on. I mean, there's probably other people I can't even think of right now, but I know you had in heavy-handed.
Yeah. There were just there's so many that.
It's amazing, but you think how much you mentored without even realizing.
Well, look, that's how the key thing you said there is without even realizing, because it just comes natural, because that's the way that I came into it. So I was mentored. So naturally I'm going to, mentor just as it just comes naturally, because that's how I got into it. So I'm doing it, like you said, without even realizing it. And, I'm happy to do that. I mean, as a lover of music, being with others who love music and want to create it, and that's a joy. There's nothing like that, And, you and I met at the 8 Ball party, from what I remember. And, Angel was there with us that night, too.
Yeah,
and,
he was like all up with us. We were all hanging tight.
Yeah.
And Angel said, yo, I want you to meet Lenny. I remember, and then Angel brought me over to you, and that's how I remember meeting you.
Wow. Where did you meet Angel?
Yeah, I knew Angel from, I think it was Kenny Carpenter.
Okay.
Long time. Angel was around all of us somehow, some way.
Yeah, he did a great imitation of Kenny and Tom Moulton. Angel did a great imitation of both Kenny and Tom. I mean, moving ahead now, I met Tom over the last 20 years, and what a great guy he is.
Tom Moulton, yes, another big legend to our business.
Just great person.
Legend, huh?
You talk about a mentor. I mean, his skills he has skills that no one else has, in my opinion.
So let's go on now from there. So you're making big records. You got a great catalog going, and you're going, and you're going, and you're going.
Yeah, well, right, building a catalog.
Does it ever stop? Does that train come to a moment where you go, holy smoke?
Well, to tell you the truth, Len, if we think about it, really, from 1991 until pretty much last year, that's almost a 30-year steady tour that we've been on, and it hasn't stopped. It's just been constant releasing, constant gigging over the last 30 years. And again, learning all along the way, constantly learning, still learning. But with the pandemic, that just put a dead stop to gigs. But going back to the time when we were talking about Baseline and starting the label, and then West Side. So that's, that brings us up into the mid 90s. And that's when I moved to Italy, because I was going to Europe every weekend. So, and if you remember, Len, before then, around that time, you and I were both spending so much time in London. Remember Maida Vale?
Oh yeah, Maida Vale. Me and him, we were sharing apartments. Like he had an apartment upstairs, I had one downstairs. Right. We were there all the time.
Yeah, that was Gary Dillon released the Groove.
Yep.
And I remember during that time getting real acquainted with London, and just spending a lot of time in Europe. So in 1995 or 6, but probably 95, I just ended up moving to Italy and traveling from there. So, I actually built the studio then in Italy. I bought the board from Northcott. I bought the tape machine from Francois, which was the Atari. And I shipped them over to Italy, and I built the studio out there in Rome. And from 96 or so until 2003, I had a studio there and was working from there and traveling from there. And I come back to New York often, and States, especially for gigs at the time when there was. But, majority of the time was being spent in Europe during those years. And I met my wife then. I met my wife in Italy, great wife, happily married, and I had kids at that time. And let me think now. Gosh, through all of this, I'm establishing a catalog. Catalog's growing. So by 2003, Len, I had a good catalog. And what happens then? Vinyl starts to die, and internet starts to come out.
Yep. Digital streaming begins. LimeWire. What was that? Napster. Oh,
Napster, yeah. And I saw it coming. I'm not the best at things, but I saw it coming, and I gave it a shot, trying to start a download site at the time, and got my feet wet with it, got a feel for it, but it was just too much for me to handle. And TrackSource came out, Beatport came out, and over those years from 2003 to 2010, just starting to move stuff online. And believe it or not, I'm still transferring stuff from DATs and tapes. There's so much back catalog I still need to put up online. And during this pandemic, that's been good productive time to get into that back catalog.
And look at everything and revisit. I did the same thing.
I know you're finding stuff
I found a lot of gems.
Awesome.
A lot of stuff that got lost that I forgot about. I pulled them all back out. Re-released old stuff that never was digitally available. Anyway.
And I bet you'll have some unreleased mixes too, right?
Yeah. Oh my God, it's crazy. Because in those days, we used to do additional passes.
Definitely.
And those passes never made the actual release. There's so many. You got like 6 or 7 additional passes. You go, wait a minute, that's another great version. You used to do a record label, or you had a label, and you'd have to do a 12-inch. You would pick your best 4 mixes, basically.
Absolutely.
That's what you do.
Because only so much could fit on a 12.
Right? 16 minutes. So you would pick your 2 mixes for your front, 2 mixes for your B side. Or 1 and 1, whatever. Or, however you want, an a cappella, bonus beats, and dub, main vocal mix. 12, 20, and knowing Victor, he probably, because he's editing mentality, he did tons of passes.
Right.
Because I worked with him in the studio. Let's run a pass like this.
Yes.
Let's run it. And I would do that. And that came, and I used to laugh about it. And we go, that was from Arthur days. He have his mindset that way.
That's so true. There's so many things that I'll use that we'll learn from Arthur. It's the truth, Len. That just sticks with you. And in going through the stuff, I've just found so much unreleased. I found one that Angel and I did that was never released.
See? There you go.
And look, I just guess one positive thing from the pandemic is it gives us time to focus on, some of this stuff and, get into that.
Big time. So again, you DJ'd, you're all over the place. Some of us would laugh. It sounds like this. Victor tonight's in Phoenix, tomorrow in Istanbul, and Monday he'll be back in Brooklyn, all within 3 days. We would always joke because Victor would be everywhere. Just that's the way Victor is. His gigs were everywhere. He would make himself be there. No matter what it takes, he gets there. And then be back in the studio session. Used to crack us all up. And by Tuesday, I'm back. Back and ready to go. You're like, all right, let's do it. And he wouldn't miss a beat. He'd do it.
Yeah, hopefully we get back to some gigs, but soon, but it's better safe than sorry.
Did you get the vaccine yet? Because you're over 65.
Yeah. No, not there yet. Not getting there, but not there yet.
Everybody's 66 this year.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but better safe than sorry, Len, with this. I mean,
you know what? They're gonna have that thing in the passport. You know that in the phone. They're gonna be looking for inoculation. You know that when we go on traveling.
My wife was saying that.
They're gonna be saying, we want to see, like you used to joke, we want to see your papers. No, they want to see inoculation, your immunization, paper.
Yeah. Only time will tell, man. It's amazing how quick stuff changes. So we're gonna find out. But look, I've been working on a lot of newer stuff, Len. So, I mean, yeah, some recent remix I'm working on. One for Paul Simpson. I'm working on one for Robert Owens, and that's Joe Ventura's label. I'm not sure if you know him. But yeah, really glad to be working on that. And then Glenn Toby did some with Rance Allen. God rest his soul, Rance Allen.
Oh my
But
God.
it's his last. It's as far as I know, it's his last recorded tune that he did with Glenn Toby. So working on that remix. And then productions, I'm working on something with Lee John. You interviewed him a
Jesus.
few weeks.
Lee John's another giant.
Absolutely.
Oh
yeah.
my God. Sweetheart and giant in our business.
Yeah. And I'm working on something with, more with Tony Lee. I have that Tony Lee and Status 4 out now, but now I'm working on something directly with Tony Lee.
Good.
Yeah, and Ann Nesby. And again, back to the digging. So digging through tapes, Lenny D and I worked on something with the Tramps when we were first starting, Len, and we found that tape and transferred it. I got in touch with Earl, and Earl's up for it. And
what is that? What record was this you worked on?
No, it's unreleased material.
Would you guys write it? Jimmy Ellis?
So no. There are other writers. We're involved in the production.
Okay.
We're involved in the production, and Tom's going to do a mix. So Tom Moulton's currently working on a mix. So I'm really looking forward to getting that done. I can't wait for you to hear it because it's.
I can't wait either.
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. And we had to go dig through. Lenny had it in a storage unit, and we had to dig way in the back of the storage unit and said, "Oh wow, there it is."
Do you remember you had that, or was it you went?
It's when something's in the back of your mind that when you're first starting, especially when I was working at Shakedown, some of it's just a blur because there's so much that was coming at once. So I do remember the sessions. And, I remember Lamb Chop coming in. He was the keyboard player. And I remember him banging that keyboard so hard. It was just shaking the whole keyboard. But he was getting down on that, on the clavinet. And it was shaking it so heavy. I vividly remember that. So, yeah, when I saw the tape, those thoughts, they came back.
Wow. And Earl Young playing his drums on it?
Well,
or was it keyboard drum? I mean,
when we recorded that, it was drum machine times. But with that said, now that we found it, the possibilities are endless there because thank God, we're all still living. So, and Earl sounds up for it too. So, and Tom's involved. So, yes, let's get Earl on that.
He would love to play. It's his band.
Right, of course.
Jimmy Ellis singing from the lead singer from the
No. So when I met back then, when I met Earl, and he brought some of the members into the studio, he introduced the singer as this is the new member of the Tramps, and his name was Antoine. He's still living, and he was a younger guy. And at that particular time, Jimmy and Earl weren't working together any longer.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing it. I mean, the song is
that project. That's good. So, which labels are of your labels? Which one is the one that's going to release it? We'll
see. Well, that's still decision making. Yeah. Let us get it done first, and then we'll determine that from there. And another thing that's coming up is, this friend in England, his name's Alex from Behind the Groove. We did an interview, just an audio interview about a few months ago. And the idea came up to do a compilation from it. So he's helped me put together a compilation and calling it Victor Simonelli Early Years, where he's picking the track. So, and it'll just be a vinyl release.
Nice.
Yeah, nice. Right. He wants to time it with vinyl, with Record Store Day. So I'm into that. I mean, look, it's definitely good to be keeping busy with releases, and making music and keeping busy making music is great. You know that.
Oh yeah.
You're working on some new stuff too?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am. I'm trying to get a record for Deborah Cox done. We'll see what I'm working. Josh Corelli. I'm sending him some demos right now. We'll see everybody. I'm working on actually Babu and Quantai signed a Michael Proctor find of vocal 25 years ago. He did. I'm remixing something for them.
Awesome.
And we just got the Current Power Records label, and we're just doing what we do.
That's great. I'm looking forward to hearing them, Len.
Yeah,
Michael. And Michael, Michael. No, Michael was another one with Deliver Me. Remember, we put that out on Baseline.
That was your record, Deliver Me.
Well, it's jazz and blues.
Deliver Me.
we put it out for him on Baseline back then, you know.
See what I'm saying, everybody? I mention a name, and what happens? It says, we released that first. Deliver Me. Unbelievable.
But, you know, all that just comes from, like you said, from authors, working at authors and watching him be open to new talent and, you know, welcoming new talent in. There's so much new talent out there, Len. And in regards to, look, that one that Arthur and I did back in 90 called Why Can't We See? Would you believe we have about 130 mixes on it from then until now? And I just put that up on TrackSource. You know, and actually Armand and Chris Lake, they did their own version too. They retitled it The Answer. But the point I'm trying to make is it's amazing how far a tune can go with, you know, different versions, different mixes. You can't predict that. I mean, yeah. Really something.
Your music is going to outlive all of us, brother. That's the key. It's a legacy. Your children have that music will be played forever and ever.
Well, you're very kind, brother.
Now, here's the thing. Question now.
Yeah.
Did you ever think the young Vic would be saying this today, that music you made back then would be living out?
Yeah, well, let me bring him in. Say hello. Let me bring him in. Emmanuel. Come here.
Bring him in.
Yeah, let me bring him in. Let him say hello. He's got his own label called Good Groove now. So this is my son, Emmanuel. Say hello.
Hey, how are you?
Good, thank you, man. How are you? I hear now you're running the record label of your own.
Yep, Good Groove.
So tell us about what the story is behind the label. What is it? Only you producing, or are you licensing records from other people? Are you doing cooperations? What's going on?
Currently, there's only one record where I did a cooperation, but it's nothing really too big right now, and I'm mostly working just on my own right now.
Yeah,
but
tell me how many releases you put out.
Right now, I have about I believe 9 releases. One is a album, a techno album. Another one is there's a couple tech house EPs, and then there's some acid house.
Yeah, I like those.
Yeah,
I do like those the most.
Yep.
Yeah, you know, we'll keep them busy.
Let me ask you something. When Dad says to you, "I'm feeling that record," is his ears as an A&R man still good? What do you think?
I think so.
Is he right? Does he give you the information?
Yes, because when he does,
go ahead.
When he gives me that advice, and then I play it out in, or whenever he plays it out, or I play it out, you just see it in the crowd. People love it.
And here's the other question. Sometimes our parents would tell us information, be like, I don't want to hear that.
Yeah.
Right? I don't really want to hear that. Or the ego.
Oh, wow.
As I can tell you from my own experice.
Yeah.
Can you admit that what he
It's true. It's true.
Oh,
I'm not gonna lie.
Forget about it. When we try to sit down to do something together, forget it.
I'll get nervous. But
Dad, you gotta go. Dad, that's the old way. There's the new way. And you know what? The young people, I always say, bring a new, fresh approach. But sometimes some of the old ways still work as well.
Yeah,
sure.
Definitely.
Very, very, very true. Yeah, one thing I find I've been helping them with on some of the stuff is the arrangements.
Okay.
You know, the arrangements. Yeah.
How an arrangement works, how a record is laid out, right?
Sure. Definitely. And he made a good point a minute ago about playing out. And, you know, I don't know if you remember, Len, but I do remember how playing out your own productions and testing them really makes a difference to the production. And the first time I experienced that, you know, the first time I had experienced doing that, and even hearing other DJs play it and then, you know, tweaking it from there. I just think that's essential to a good production.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
So I mean, what do you on that subject?
It's the nervousness of are they going to dance to it? In your mind, you're thinking this. Even though everybody's smiling, they have their drinks, pre-pandemic, of course.
Yeah.
And everybody's excited and listening. Thank you, Emmanuel. You're the best. And
No problem. Thank you.
And what? And tell everybody the name of the label again.
Good Groove. It's on TrackSource, Beatport, and you can find it on Facebook and Instagram.
Support him. Give it up.
Thank you.
Support him.
Thank you.
Thank you, brother.
You know that feeling well as I do is that when a DJ plays your product, or you're there and not even realizing a record of yours gets played, and then to get thrown off balance for a minute just to watch a packed room, is it make them stop dancing?
Right. So important, man.
How does it sit with the other record before?
Wow.
Right?
That is definitely, Len. Definitely. It's so important. I mean, and you said it yourself a minute ago. You said pre-pandemic. So what are your thoughts on during the pandemic? Because we're not able to test this stuff out. Yeah, we could get it to a,
everything that we had in our minds doesn't apply right now.
Mm-hmm.
You can't use any of our pre-pandemic applications.
Right.
Until things come back.
Yeah. I'm finding that I'm finding that some of the recent productions that I've done and finished without playing out, I'm finding that getting that feedback from other DJs has been helpful.
Sure.
And getting honest feedback. I appreciate hearing, no, man, that's not sounding right. This is wrong or this is wrong. Then hearing, oh yeah, that sounds great if it's not sincere. You know what I mean?
What good is it going to be if nobody plays the record if there's something wrong with it?
Right.
What the hell good is that for your ego? I mean, everyone's telling you it's great, but yet nobody's playing it.
No.
Does it make you go, wait a second, I got to visit this again and figure out why?
Constructive criticism, man, is so important. So important.
Oh my God, you gave us so much information. You're incredible. Simonelli, the Italian stallion, lived in Italy, did the European thing, lived in Utah.
Yeah, that was
he even wore a cowboy hat.
I don't know about that. But.
Came back, put on his decks, and went out dancing again. Came back to New York anytime he could to learn what he needed to learn, to make those cassettes to hold him to his next trip back. Because I remember he used to do that. He used to do a lot of recording.
I still have all the cassettes, Len. Yeah, you still have yours?
Yeah, I still got mine. Wow. I still got mine. I actually pulled the cassette machines back out, and I've been digitizing all that stuff.
Wow.
Been digitizing. But it's so nice that, your son followed you, and you got the other boys too.
Oh, yeah, the other boys are great. So my second son, Antonino, he's really great with computers. And Christopher, he's still young, but, he's into skateboarding. But time will tell what he does. I mean, you have a child too, so you know who it is.
One big question.
Yeah.
And this is, because Marshall and Byron had me hysterical laughing when I went to see one of the A&R people, and they got such a bad review on their product. Was there ever a product you brought up to somebody that you worked on, and they handed you your behind back to you and told you it was garbage or whatever, and they were totally wrong?
Definitely. I mean, more than once. So let me just share one experience with you.
The most fun one. Go ahead.
So I brought it up to him, and they were really negative about it, saying, "No, I'm not feeling this at all. Just bring me something else when you got it. This is not going to work," and this, that, and the other. Just total negative response. Well, you just take it. Okay, well, thanks for listening. So I took it to another label, and eventually got it signed, released on another label. Then that started to get play. You remember John Robinson, right?
Yeah, WBLS.
John Robinson, Bobby Condas. Bobby Condas, that's another. So thinking about people that helped out. So I taught Bobby Condas how to edit and, got him started in that regard with editing. But anyway, that's a whole other story. But the point I'd want to make is we became close friends. And he started playing the tune, John Robinson playing it, Tony playing it. That person that gave me all those negative comments called me back after they heard it on their shows, right?
And what they said?
You know what they said? Why didn't you bring that record to us? We would have loved to put that out. What changed from the time I brought it to their office to the time it got played on their shows?
Wait. I caught them many times. Some of the A&R people where I said, "I brought you that record," and they go to my face, "We were all together," and they said, "I don't remember hearing it." I said, "How funny that was," because I was in the room, such and such was in the room, and you.
Right. It's
I
just
do not remember telling me it was garbage. Oh, wait. The best line was, "You got something else."
you got something else, right?
Remember that, Vic?
Right.
You got something
It's a shame that they put so much weight on who's playing it, and
And that little thing called the radio.
yeah.
Isn't that something? That
If you're
little
gonna,
it's called the radio.
if you're going to be an A&R person, come on now, be qualified. It doesn't. You're the one that wants to get it there. I just felt like a lot of the A&R guys wanted to just jump on a bandwagon and not work for it. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Not work for it. And you brought up another thought, but we didn't speak about Claudio Coccoluto.
Well, you can tell us about Claudio.
Yeah, it's just so sad that he passed on too this week. I mean, it's some week, Len, and a longtime friend. Wow. Yeah, I remember when he first came to New York, Len, Tino Padovano brought him. And, he had his first tune started, which was called Angels of Love. I don't know if you remember that.
Oh, I remember it.
Remember? Yeah. So what happened is that Tino was tight with Claudia at Maxi at the time. And, he brought it up there. And we ended up going in the studio. It was Tino and I think Ralphie and Tommy, myself, and Claudia. It was Claudio's project, but we all worked on it together, and it ended up coming out on Maxi. And then the tunes he did after that, and just his DJ career, it's so sad. And as a person, he was a great person too, family guy, and it's sad, very sad. God rest his soul.
But he won't be forgotten.
No.
And his son, like your son, is also in the business now and DJing and everything. So the legacy will live on. His son will keep the legacy going.
Yeah.
But see how it's all intertwined, this house music thing? Somehow or another, we all wind up working together. Some crazy way, or somehow gigs, productions, maybe a remix. A lot of things happened those days. It was the synergy in the air. We would meet at parties. Next thing you knew, we were all in studios together. It was crazy.
It's amazing. And on that note, Len, what about just going to places where you've never been before, meeting the person, after about 5 minutes, you feel like you've known each other for years just because the music connection. It's sort of like a family, a musical family across the world, and you're meeting relatives you've never met before. That's what it really feels like. I mean, to me anyway.
You're right.
Right? It really is the universal language, man.
And I tell you, I wouldn't have all the great friends if it wasn't for this music.
Wow.
Seriously. How many people we met around the world because of our traveling?
Oh, man, that's absolutely amazing. And through all this, let's just help each other and encourage one another. And, just being locked down alone, that can, if you don't have your mindset right and, you're not, look, just supporting one another is so helpful. During these times, it can be easy to fall into depression if you're not staying active and just keeping your mind right. Yeah, prayer helps me, brother. I'm constant prayer. It really is helpful.
Don't forget, everybody, he's read that Bible from cover to cover many times.
Oh,
I'm serious, cover to cover.
It's thank God for everything. That's the truth, brother.
Yeah, thank God. And you know what? We shall get through this and we shall come back, everybody. And on that note, Victor, I'm going to say to you, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Great story. My God.
No, it's great talking with you. You always know how to get the stories flowing. And I like hearing your stories too. Yeah,
I wish mine were made up. I sometimes say, I wish mine were made up because some of those stories, they suck when you live in them, but they make great stories. I always say, I'm the Forrest Gump. I was around it. I remember seeing it. I went, oh, God, help me.
Yeah.
But it's part of our business and our heritage.
Yeah.
And Paul Simpson, if I remember correctly, said it wasn't the business that we picked. It was the business that picked us. And it's so true. How we all found this business. We wanted it so bad. And boy, when we found out later what it was like, it's not the business we thought it was going to ever be. Remember, you and I would always speak. We were like, ain't nothing like what we thought, we dreamed of. But beautiful in a lot of ways.
Yes, look, some of it is you take the goods with the bads. I mean, and I always try to stay positive through it all. You know, look, you got to deal with negatives sometimes. So it's just a fact of life.
Hey,
You got what you say again.
I was going to say, what doesn't kill you makes you a lot stronger and smarter.
Sure. Definitely. I agree with that. Yep.
Oh, man, Victor Will. Thank you, Victor Simonelli, coming from Brooklyn, New York.
Thank you.
We love to see you in our studio here with Tony Lee someday, or one of the big artists, and rocking the console like
Absolutely.
You used to do. We'd love to see you on that note.
Yeah, I love those monitors you got.
Yeah, those are just like every New York studio had. The big double 15 TAD drivers, the Osbergers.
Beautiful.
Coming live, we're real, and this studio is real. It's not a green screen. It is real, everybody. The studio is real. So thank you, Victor, again. We are so grateful to your story. And next week we have one of the new school, Birdie. Birdie will be coming on to tell us his story. Come and check it out. Victor, you have anything last words?
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Should be eating more Italian food? Anything we need to know?
Well, I mean, all joking aside, eating healthy is so important, Len. That's for sure. You see what's happened to our friends, man. I mean, good Lord. Yeah, but no, it's a pleasure talking to you. And I'm sorry to, sound a bit, sad about things, but it's just it's a lot to deal with right now, and I'm just so sorry we lost these friends recently. So, yeah.
I know. We'll get through it, brother. We've been through hard times, but nothing like this.